I just want to call out each of you and make sure that you can hear me and that I can hear you. And I kind of know that already. So we went through this. So Kevin, if you can just tell me you're here and that you can hear me.
Yep, Kevin Gallagher here, and I can hear you fine.
Great. Thank you. Maura, how about you?
Here, and I can hear you fine.
Great. And Sherilyn?
I am here and I can hear you.
Awesome. All right. So we'll get going. So I call the meeting to order at 6:02 for the Waste Reduction and Recycling Committee. And the first thing on our agenda is to review and approve past meeting minutes. And I know, Sherilyn, you sent out meeting minutes to the committee yesterday. So thank you for doing that. And then there were two emails. The first one that went out, you corrected and sent a second one. Is that correct? So we're voting on the one that you sent, the second one you sent yesterday. So I will.
Minutes were only, I think, attached to the first one. It's just that I had the date wrong on the first email I sent.
Right. Okay, so I will take a motion to approve meeting minutes for the date was, I don't have it in front of me. It was a November meeting, correct?
Yes. Although there is a blank that needed to be filled in on the November meeting minutes, which is Cindy from the Municipal Center. I did not catch her last name.
Ide.
Huh?
Ide. I-D-E.
I-D-E. Okay.
Yep.
That explains why I didn't catch it. It just went by so fast. Right. So these will get revised with her name filled in correctly, the places where I say fill in Cindy's name.
Yes. Okay, what's the date on that, Sherilyn? Because I don't have
8th.
November 8th. Okay, thank you. So I will take a motion for approval of meeting minutes on November 8th. Someone wants to.
Second.
You would have to say so moved, Kevin. And then I would need someone to second it. So I, as the chair, cannot give the motion. It has to be someone. Yeah.
First time.
Hey, it's okay. I've been on enough committees and I'm still like, I haven't been chair in a very long time of a committee, so I'm still navigating too. So can I have a motion for that?
I move that we approve the minutes for the November 8th meeting as amended.
Great.
Second.
Awesome. Okay, so because we're on Zoom, we're going to do a roll call vote. So Kevin, you would just say your name and aye or nay.
All right, Kevin Gallagher. Okay.
Okay, and Maura?
Mara McCormick, aye.
Sherilyn Reno, aye.
Great, and Doreen DeFazio, aye. So I declare the motion carried 4-0. Great. And so we're all caught up on minutes now, correct, Sherilyn?
Okay. Yes, the September minutes were in there again because at the November meeting when we approved these, we didn't notice that I had the date wrong on them. So when I sent them to the clerk's office, the clerk said, wait a second, the agenda and your minutes have different dates on them. So we need to approve the September 29th ones as amended also.
Okay. So I'll take a motion.
The amendment is that it says September 29th instead of September 28th, which is what.
Okay. And that needs a vote to change?
Apparently.
Okay.
The clerk tells me.
Well, I believe the clerk. So I will take a motion for the September 29th meeting minutes as amended. Sherilyn, you want to give a motion?
I move that we approve the amended version of the September 29th meeting minutes.
Great.
Second.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, by roll call vote. So Kevin?
Aye.
Maura?
Aye.
And Sherilyn?
Aye.
And DeFazio, aye. So that's another vote of 4-0. And now we are caught up on all meeting minutes that can be posted in the clerk's office. So thank you guys for that. So the next thing on our agenda, and really the biggest item on the agenda and the reason why I wanted to hold this meeting tonight was to discuss the pay-as-you-throw updates and select board discussions and requests from our December meetings. Has everybody had a chance to take a look at those discussions, watch those meetings, kind of get a good understanding of what's going on and what's really being asked of us? I know, Sherilyn, you actually attended in person one of the meetings, so
Yeah, I'm
I know you were there.
trying to find my notes. There's my notes. Okay.
And I don't know if Kevin can ignore what's going on in terms of trash and recycling in Grafton.
Nope.
So I know that you are up to speed. Mara, were you able to watch the meetings in December?
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay. So I'll just open this up for discussion on, in terms of timeline. I'll start with that. This is really, a long game discussion. Right now, the board has voted to increase bag fees in order to make sure that we that basically the budget is balanced for the rest of this fiscal year. However, moving forward, there's been quite a bit of discussion on what increases will continue to look like, whether or not this program makes sense, and what we could do to help continue to bring costs down if we continue to do curbside pickup, trash and recycling. One of the ideas that I know we've talked about is even just, composting, adding composting. But there's certainly, this is a big discussion, and I'm just hoping tonight that we can just have like an open conversation about what your thoughts are of the select board meeting, even before we kind of get to ideas. But certainly if we have ideas, we can start throwing those out too. And then we'll kind of organize and frame how we're going to tackle this for the next meeting. So the way I see it is, this is not necessarily the problem solving meeting. This is really for us just to kind of get together, acknowledge what the issue is, and come up with a game plan for this committee to move forward. So I'll open it up. I just asked too, and I didn't say this in the beginning, but particularly on Zoom, because it gets tricky, just raise your hand, and if you have your camera off, you're welcome to use the Zoom hand raise as well. And just wait for me to call on you, just in terms of discussion and minutes. So anyone want to start?
One thing, sorry.
No, all good. It's a
Um,
small group. I just, have to keep it organized.
One thing that was said in the selectmen's meeting was possibly doing something similar to Millbury, and having in moving from the curbside to actually having a trash dump transfer station.
Mhm.
And yikes. I just don't know how that can work, to tell you the truth. Just for the simple fact that it's expensive. Trash disposal is expensive. And we're at the mercy of Wheelabrator and Harvey, and prices go up, as much as people want to stay at that even keel and in the same spot. It's just not realistic, but yeah, that transfer station idea, yikes. That's all I gotta say there.
Okay.
That's a big move.
Yeah, I would agree, Kevin. And if anyone wants to chime in on this subject too, I think just to staff something like that alone would be more expensive than our current curbside pickup contract. Along with the fact that, and Kevin, you can probably speak more on this too. I mean, there's one of the reasons we went into pay as you throw is to eliminate any illegal dumping or people coming from out of town and putting trash into our system, and we're paying for the tonnage at the end of the day. And we tried years ago to have, just before we started the recycling program, and this is probably dating back like 12 years, the only place to have recycling was at the DPW center. And I know that that is still active, but it's probably less active with people having curbside. And if we, no? Okay, so imagine if we eliminated
It is
recycling.
bananas.
Okay,
Hey,
okay.
Yeah.
I apologize for interrupting, but Andy
Oh.
is sitting out in the,
Thank you.
thank you.
I've been waiting for him, and I knew once, there we go. There he is. Hi, Andy.
Hey, everybody.
How you doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
Good. Sorry to have you hang out in the waiting room there. I was trying to pay attention, and then we got into conversation, and I was like, I missed him. So we've just started our discussion about the select board, discussions on pay as you throw and recycling in terms of our budget. As you are fully aware, we've increased bag fees to balance the budget for this fiscal year. This is a long game in terms of what the select board is looking for solutions, and would like this committee to really go over every option in the coming months, and everything from adding things like composting and other ideas that will help not only our bottom line in terms of tonnage, but also help residents maybe use less pay-as-you-throw bags as we increase bag fees. Two, we were just talking about what a transfer station would look like, and we all seem to be under agreement that it would look like a nightmare, particularly Kevin. And so we're just in that discussion right now. So Mara, just because I can't see you, I don't know if you have anything you'd like to say to weigh in terms of this, or I'll open it back up for discussion. I'd like to stay for a second on the transfer station discussion and just what people's thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I don't know too much about that because I've never been in a community that did that kind of trash disposal, but I feel like that would be chaos. I definitely agree that that would not be a great idea. I definitely prefer curbside pickup. It seems like it would be kind of weird to expect everybody to go to a dump. And then, like, what if there's traffic outside of it while everybody in the community is waiting to, yeah, I don't know. I did hear that option, and I was like, I don't see how that would work. So
Yeah, thank you. Sherilyn?
Well, Framingham does both. They have curbside, which is restricted by the amount. And they also have their transfer station, which used to be, you just bought a dump sticker at the beginning of the year. It was good for the whole year, and you could come as many times as you want. But now they're charging per item too, because it was just getting too expensive to run it on only, $10 per user per year. And it is a mess. And they do have a lot of staff there. You drive in, and the different dumpsters for different things, and people are standing there the whole time it's open, making sure people aren't putting the wrong stuff in, because otherwise then they'll have to go through and sort it out again. So I'd say every time I've gone with my friend to help him take stuff, there's been 5 employees at least there.
Yeah, okay. Andy, you have anything you want to add?
Nothing offhand yet. I had watched watched those sections of the 2 select board meetings just to refresh again today, and I took some notes and stuff on there. What some of the concerns were. I didn't go through. I don't remember. I think you sent out the some of the graphs that Evan had included in at the meeting. I didn't really have a chance to go through the attachments that you had sent yet, but yeah, I did have some notes from goals and things that you guys discussed at the select board meeting.
Okay. Yeah, the graphs and such were more, I think that was before we had determined to raise bag fees too. So, and that will just essentially show a graph to what we're currently doing, which, we determined we needed to raise bag fees in order to balance the budget for this year. But we're going to get to a point where if we continue to raise bag fees, particularly because these pay-as-you-throw bags aren't very popular due to the fact that they break a lot, because there's actually a tonnage or a weight limit, I should say, in the bags. And so it's sometimes a quality issue, but more likely it's trying to stuff as much as people can into a bag, which is understandable because we have to pay for them. But at the same time, it's not going to be a popular discussion if we continue to raise bag fees, and a trash bag costs, $15, which is essentially what we'd be looking at in 2023. So in order to keep this program going as is. So, I know that another option that was brought up was stickers instead of bags. And in one of the, Evan had come back to us because we asked him to reach out to a couple of bag vendors and get prices on that. Currently, we're still using Waste Zero. He had identified that other communities have issues with the stickers, and that was not really a direction that we should consider going, because stickers get stolen off of bags, which is crazy to me, but also they're hard to track. When they go to Wheelabrator, they're, like bags, the bag color and knowing that they're a bag, it pays you throw a bag is much easier than hiding stickers. And there just seems to be, there's communities that seem to have a lot of issues with the stickers. So that was also something that was identified as not a great option, just like the transfer station.
Right. Yeah. The tonnage costs, we can better regulate the amount of trash that goes out in the town bags because they cap at that limit where they break. Whereas if somebody's going out and getting like contractor bags, 80-gallon contractor bags, and putting the same sticker on that, somebody who's putting out 30 gallons of trash, it really throws off our tipping fees on the other end. So.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
So, and Andy, just to get you up to speed too, from just the couple minutes in the discussion, my hopes today is that we don't necessarily need to come up with a solution, because that's not going to happen in one meeting, but I just wanted to have a general discussion and talk about where we as a committee think that we need to go from here, and just kind of structure a plan moving forward in terms of, maybe dividing some work in terms of like reaching out to other communities, finding other options, research that we can do, and potentially go back to the board and let them know what we're researching. So that's my intention for this meeting, not to have one meeting and fix our entire trash and operational
For sure.
contract. So that's where we're at. Anyone else? Any highlights of the meetings? Obviously, I was there for both of them, so
I mean, so when I was coming in, that was one of my I felt like the open-ended questions was the stickers that, it was asked what the cost per unit difference would be to produce stickers versus producing trash bags. So hopefully we could, recoup that. And it didn't seem like there was an answer to that at the last meeting, although now you're saying, the answer was it's just not a great idea. Don't, stay away from it. So I feel like that one's wrapped up. There was a lot of talk about, how much each community subsidizes the amount that they put towards the bags. I don't feel like it's really relevant to keep discussing that because we've already decided that it's a tough model and we're probably going to move away from it. So I don't know how much this would involve us, but I know you guys discussed that cart model and what that could look like. But again, like there's so much involved in that, and as you guys noted, discussions with Wheelabrator, discussions with Harvey, how that affects our current contracts with both. I thought Evan had said it was going to be about 160K to purchase rollaways for a third of the residences, which, I did the math quick, is like 480,000 for the town if it's roughly a third, which you guys talked about, there possibly being grants to offset that. I don't know who does that sort of digging when we start to try and get answers about a comparable program like that.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, yeah, any other thoughts about that, about like a toters or cart program instead of bags?
I thought everybody made some good points. I, as you had said, even with the toters for the recycling, that some of our elderly residents and stuff might not, to them it's not worth bringing out 2 cans in that giant wheelway. My driveway is like 600 some odd feet. It is a haul to bring my rollaway down. But the alternative, one of the alternatives originally mentioned with just doing away with it altogether still also feels like a step in the wrong direction. I don't know that there's any good in between with the solutions. It feels like we laid out a bunch of possibilities, or you guys discussed a bunch of possibilities that pretty well ran the gamut of what you could do, from the simplest being the stickers, I don't want to say the most complex being the rollaways, but at least maybe logistically. I don't know. It's one of those areas where I always tip my hat to the select board because half the people aren't going to be happy with whatever we choose. There's so little win in any of this.
Right.
But that cart model, when I was growing up in Rutland, that's what we had. I should have asked my mom ahead of time. I don't know if that was privatized service or how the town had set it, if it was a town program or not. But yeah, we had the BFI bin that you rolled down Wednesdays, and that was that.
Mm-hmm.
I still think it makes it easy on a lot of people. But I hadn't thought about that counter argument until you mentioned it with the recycling toters. So
yeah, I mean, so I was involved when we started the pay as you throw program back in 2009, I think it was. And as we were putting together and promoting that program, that's one of the things that's why we ended up with a smaller toter, because when we went to do outreach and education, particularly with our seniors, they were like, I live alone. I'm not bringing this giant barrel down my driveway in the winter. I don't produce that much recycling and I don't need it. So I'm speculating that the same thing is going to happen to trash. And so we want to find a solution that works for everybody. And certainly we can talk about the model of do we get 2 size toters again? And what would that look like? And what would the cost be for that? And, in terms of nobody's going to be happy at the end of the day. There's always, we're not going to make everybody happy. And that is absolutely true. It's a complicated and expensive program, no matter which way we slice it. But that's why I really like having this committee, because, the select board will worry about the pushback on the program. We, at the end of the day, will vote on it and determine. This committee is really just kind of like the creative brain power, so to speak, behind the scenes, just coming up with ideas, maybe doing a little bit of research and budgeting and saying, we think that these 3 options would be feasible for you to consider. And that's really what we want to get to. And it's really up to the select board at the end of the day to say, no, we're going to stay the course with pay as you throw, or these are 3 good options. Let's discuss them, ask questions, and talk about them. So, which kind of gives us, the opportunity to really brainstorm and look at every option and not just say, well, people won't like that. So I agree in terms of, I want to consider our senior community, or even people living in town that, people with disabilities. I mean, everything. We want to be able to consider everybody in terms of this program, but one solution might be 2 different size toters, and we do the math on that. We research it. We figure out what the budget would be. We figure out if there are grant opportunities to offset the cost, and offer that as an option to the select board. Thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's good. Shoot, train just left the station
Oh,
without me.
I know. It's been a long day. It's been a long week. I feel like every other word coming out of my mouth is.
So, and I think probably the ideal system has flexibility to it. So, maybe there is a smaller tipping station element that we could, like a permitted thing that certain residents could apply for if they didn't have, if I don't want to say like an exemption, but more or less like an exemption, for senior citizens, things like that, where they could go and drop rather than.
Well, wouldn't that have the same issue as the totes? Like, how many people are going to get in their car to drive their trash over?
That was, yeah, as I'm saying it, I'm thinking who's gonna, is it easier to tote it or throw it in your car at that point? So, but I mean, they've got to do something with it. So,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I really don't want to get away from curbside pickup. So I think we need to keep that. So if the card system would completely replace that, I definitely don't think that's something we should go for.
No, I
don't know much about it, so.
I would like to keep it as much curbside as we could. Okay. And this would just be for a select crowd. And I don't even know if you could apply some sort of limiter like that, but I'm thinking that, of servicing people, who need the help, whether it's a cost issue or, a physical capabilities issue, anything like that. Just as long as we have, or ideally have a way for them to do things easier, it worth considering. Mm-hmm. But I think curbside is for both is ideally the way we want to go. Okay. The other question I had, do we know what the what sort of numbers it would cost to implement a townwide composting? Is it something that would produce enough incentive to offset these costs in a noticeable fashion?
I can speak to that on a small scale, and I would say yes, it would make an impact if people were to use it. So I don't know if anyone else here does curbside composting. Do any of you are involved in any? Okay. So my family has a contract with Black Earth, and we get a little toter that's picked up once a week, and we pay, I'm gonna have to ask my husband. I don't remember off the top of my head how much we pay, but it definitely offsets our trash. So since we've been composting the past, I guess, 9 months, we use a lot less trash bags, like in terms of like on an annual basis. Because what we learned is like we recycle everything, and a lot of our waste was food. And
Yeah.
so if we eliminated that from our trash bag, particularly in weight, right? Because at the end of the day too, if it's going to Wheelabrator, I think it could affect our tonnage, and our, not our tipping fee, but our overall tonnage. And so I certainly, if you were to put that with, what do we have, Kevin, 4,500 households in town now that do curbside?
It sounds about right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Around there. So, I would think it would make some impact. And again, we have like our recycling bins lined up, and then the compost bin lined up, and it's seamless. In the company Black Earth, I know will give more discount to, like, if we were to do a program in bulk, that's what they're looking to do. So that's something that we could definitely look into, see if we could get a cost for, how many compost bins being delivered, and see if we could, I think it would be something that the town would have to initially pay for in terms of like the toters being delivered. Let me throw that question out there. Do you think it would be good to promote it for individual households, or do you think this would be a solution for the town in terms of, kind of eating the cost on the compost program in order to save on tipping fees? As I say that, I realize that that's probably not a good idea, because we also were able to pay for our waste budget through the pay-as-you-throw bag. So we're gonna be in the same position financially. But I guess if residents is an option for residents, if we were to promote it, educate people on composting, and let's say, we get 40% of our town to do it, it will certainly make a difference. And the incentive being you'd use less pay-as-you-throw bags.
Well, with the Black Earth thing, you also get a bag of compost, right?
Yeah.
I don't know exactly how expensive it is, or what our open spaces or parks and rec committee uses. Maybe that would help offset some of the, like if we use the town's money to help with the composting, and then use that instead of giving everybody their own individual bag of compost, just have the town take it and use it for, I don't know, open spaces.
Yeah, we'd have to find out if there's a need, but they'll build like raised bed gardens and stuff. Like they offer, Black Earth offers like a lot of different options, a lot of different incentives. So
Yeah, I just wonder if maybe on the back end that can be a way we could recoup some of the costs, but if not, yeah.
yeah. No, it's a good thought. What about, we kind of touched on this a little bit, but what about the thought of eliminating the program completely and just having it privatized, where every resident's responsible for their own trash pickup? Because I think that's a discussion that we have to have, because it was brought up, and so basically the town would save right now $1.3 million in their operating budget by getting out of the trash business. So you know, from that standpoint, it's a good one. From trash trucks driving all around town and people being responsible for their own, you know, there's obviously cons to that as well. So, but I think we should talk about that.
Yeah, one con I can see is going back to what you said before with people just putting their trash in other people's boxes. So if one person doesn't feel like buying it, then they know their neighbor does, they can just put their trash in that bin.
But the town wouldn't be paying for it.
Yeah, that would just be, I mean, it would be still be a problem for our residents.
Yeah.
Also, isn't that expensive? I know that my mother-in-law does that up in one of the Western Mass towns, and she pays $500 a year for that. It seems like we shouldn't be expecting everybody to do that. It's complicated.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess we kind of pay it indirectly. So I guess it's just like depending on how we slice it.
Yeah, well, I just mean, isn't it cheaper in general for us to pay as a bulk than for us individually to pay and have individual trucks come down the street?
It depends on how many people are in your family and how.
I mean, homes on the street. If every home has their own individual trash collection and they all use different companies, then different trucks, like you said, are going to be coming down the street, and they're all going to be collected and put into different buckets rather than just being collected all together. And it probably, I mean, I would expect it to be cheaper for us to buy that kind of process in bulk rather than having everybody figure it out on their own.
Yes, but we're getting to the point where it's not. I guess like that's where we're headed is, and that's why we pay for bags right now, because it's actually less expensive for everybody to have their own program. But it really depends on the size of the family, you know, like, so for example, if you're a family who has 5 children, you may have, you know, you may be putting out several bags of trash every day. And yes, then that means that your household would be paying more than someone who composts and it's just a single person living in a home. So that's how it's determined. And that's sort of how the pay as you throw program got started. So you are paying for what you throw away. But we're now at this place where the pay as you throw program is still, unless we make bags like $15 or $20 a trash bag, which seems unreasonable for residents, we're going to get to that place. Like how much are we going to raise these bag fees to be able to pay for the costs? And I guess the driver of this is the recycling market has completely changed since 2009. And so now we have such an increase in our trash and recycling costs that we're unable to pay for this particular budget off of this pay as you throw program. So I guess what I'm hearing is it wouldn't be a good option, which would lead us back to, if we were to keep the pay as you throw program, are there options there to lower costs? Because essentially that's what we're looking to do. We're looking to lower costs because the town cannot afford, as it grows, $1.5, $1.6 million trash budget. It just is going to get to the place where it's unsustainable. We're kind of hitting that now. We're asking people to pay $12 a bag starting in February. So, we're close. We're going to definitely get pushback on that. And we're going to be looking at the same thing next year, which will have to go up to $15 a bag. So $500 a year or $15 a bag, it could actually end up, depending on the family, being less money to have their own service. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I don't disagree with you. I think having our own, I think everybody having their own service would bring some issues in town. You know, just having in neighborhoods like trash trucks driving through towns all the time would be an issue. But I'm just saying that it's something that, you know, we should talk about and consider. And I was told too from board members to make sure we talk about it and consider it, because there are some board members that think it's the best option to get out of the trash business.
I'm waving my hand.
Carolyn? Yeah.
I have a feeling that the way to piss off the most people in town the most quickly is eliminate curbside pickup.
Yeah.
To be perfectly honest with you. There are so many people who will just be, okay, what do I do now? They've never had to contract with trash. They've never had to do anything because they've always lived someplace with curbside pickup. So the first, I don't know, 6 months will be a nightmare as people try to sort everything out, I would imagine.
Well, there would have to be a lead up time. You know, we would have to give people a lot of options. So it wouldn't be like next week, you don't have trash pickup anymore. But it wouldn't eliminate curbside pickup. It would just be a different model.
It feels like from all of the different town meetings and stuff that I've been to, that people just sort of expect things to go on how they always have. The town shouldn't even be charging them anything to pick up their trash.
Right.
I think is what is in a lot of people's heads. It should just magically happen.
Well, what would happen if we just increased taxes and stopped using half of it for pay as you throw?
Andy, you want to take that one?
I had been debating speaking up on any of it because you know, I'm trying to figure out what's relevant versus, you know, you can't always worry about not pissing people off. You know, my if it, I think you're right. I felt there was a similar pressure watching the meetings that we should explore that option. I think it's worthwhile to explore just to say that we did it. I feel like in the end, that's going to come down as like our threat option. You know, these are our recommendations, or the other option is we privatize, in which case your taxes aren't going to go down at all, but you are going to be paying for, you know, you're right. You're not paying the town to take away your trash anymore, but that money's not coming back to you. You know, like that money's going towards other things now. It's not, you know, and people are going to go, well, I'm not paying for it. Why aren't I getting that money back? So I feel like that's what the option is going to come down to. It's going to be privatization is probably the least favorable of the three options. And it's going to be, you know, what you're currently paying and your taxes stays where it is. And then you're going to be on the hook for another, say you know, we'll use that arbitrary $500. You know, and for me, you know, looking at that, I go, well, that's like 40 bags for the year. You know, like is that seems high, but you know, maybe I don't go through that many, or maybe I go through more than that. You know, I do try and be conservative with those things. I
generally try to use 1 week.
It like
That math.
Yeah, at the same time though, those bag numbers aren't going to stay at the same rate. You know, that there is that drastic increase every year that needs to happen in order to offset some of that cost and keep us on the same track. So I don't know. It's there are still so many variables, I guess, in all these costs and whatnot. And I know we're not trying to solve it all tonight and whatnot. It's just trying to think through everything, and you get down one path and you think you go, okay, well, there could be something to that if we, you know, then you change your view and you go, yeah, that's not going to fly, or, you know, Yeah, I don't have any other ideas offhand. I just, I keep coming back to that, man, people are just not gonna like this.
Yeah,
You know?
and again, I just want to say again, this is like a creative brainstorming group. Like the select board will handle the
Oh,
pushback because at the end of the day, even with all these options, because we're not going to bring one option in front of a select board, it would be like, here are your 3 best options. None of them are great, right? So good luck making a decision, right? And so, that's kind of, I agree with you, Andy, and I agree with you, Maura, everything you said. I don't necessarily, it wouldn't go well, right? If we said there's no longer, your trash is going to be privatized. However, right, if you also look at it from a budget standpoint, well, having $1.6 million free in our budget that we could put toward education, like I think some people would be very much in favor of that. And so, where are we cutting costs from other departments to pay for this trash service? And what is the tipping point that we're getting to, where it no longer makes sense? Like, are we going to be paying $2 million to pick up trash and have a shortfall in the school budget of, $600, $700, $800,000? What makes sense? And so those are the things where there's no best case scenario, because I think we would have figured that out by now, but neither is our current program. It's not sustainable, like I said. So I think we have to look at these options as none of them are going to be what we want them to be. None of them are going to be the 2009 pay as you throw program where the town saved money and recycling was free. We're not going back to that. So I would suggest we can, just based too on other board members who want us to look at this option, I think we do look at the privatizing option as looking at communities that do it, what their pros and cons are. Some of them we can identify pretty quickly, and what the cost would be for residents if we were to do that. Because we might find out it's not $500, it's $1,000, and there's absolutely no way that's an option, because we know that's not going to be an option for a lot of families in town, right? And then what would low income look like? What policies would have to be put in place in order for it to be a sustainable program? So yeah, I mean, it's complicated, but I do think it's an option that the board would appreciate we going through the process and delivering any information we have on it.
Yeah.
Is everybody in agreement? Kevin, you've been quiet. I'm waiting for you to.
All I've been thinking of is like, I went into this whole meeting being like, we can't have that transfer station. There's no way, and there's no way. And now I'm like, son of a, maybe there is a way. Like, it just seems like when you're throwing out all these numbers, like on how expensive it's going to be, I'm like, okay, how much can all these trucks, trailers, dumpsters, staff, cost? And then we got to find a location, because that's not going to smell nice. But is it something that we do now that's going to be much more expensive, but in 10 years, it's our own, and we control it,
Right.
So
you mean like us actually like buying trash trucks, the town investing in trash trucks?
Oh, no.
Okay.
No. I meant the trucks. We'd have to buy the trucks to take the dumpsters and the trailers from the transfer station to Wheelabrator.
Okay, which would eliminate curbside pickup. It would be a dump sticker for everybody.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
And
I mean,
that's like, holy crap. It's a huge, huge change.
But it
Yeah,
also feels like we'd be incurring like huge costs for equipment. And now you're talking about routine maintenance and
right.
you know, a good chunk of the current budget would probably just shift over to that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that would be something that would increase every year,
Yeah,
you know?
and probably break into our capital expenses too for
Oh,
maintenance.
absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely. But where I realize this committee is formed to come up with a way to save money, and at the end of the day, it just is like, I can't see how we can save money when everything else around us is getting expensive and we're trying to stay the same.
Welcome
We
to town.
can't. We can't.
This is like the same thing every committee laments. It's it's just wow. It definitely feels overwhelming. So okay, I think to piggyback off that, I think there are still a lot of numbers that we need to track down to make any sort of serious headway, so we can start comparing apples to apples with some of these costs and stuff. But just thinking out loud again, maybe if we were to like explore that private model, I think the private trash hauler is also going to want to try and get as many people in a convenient radius as possible. And I think that was mentioned with the composting as well, when that kind of initially rolled out, that there were generally better rates if you could get your whole neighborhood involved instead of just picking and choosing a few here and there. So maybe that's something that the town could assist with if we decided to go that model. Try and get some sort of sign up, or some sort of rough idea as to how many residents are going to be. I mean, I guess every resident would be looking for it. Anyways, just if they had some sort of rough idea that perhaps the town could help negotiate a decent rate for private pickup for the citizens, and say, hey, it's going to be private, but we're thinking you'll get roughly this many people to sign up if you can offer a decent rate, and see what they come back with.
yeah. I feel like that would be a really good survey, like a town survey. If we could have the town administrator's office maybe send something out, and just kind of ask people, like maybe on social media, maybe in other ways, but just sort of ask like, what would your interest be in a curbside composting, and try to and also try to figure out the cost, because I think there are many people that have their own composting, and so they wouldn't necessarily be interested. So we kind of want to straw poll and see how many people would do that. I like that idea, because so I guess then people are buying less bags if they compost, and then this is sort of the overarching issue to that is then the town is paying more, right? Because if we're offsetting costs by pay as you throw bags, and people are composting and not buying as many pay as you throw bags, then we're going to have a shortfall, which means bags will increase in cost. Like, that's the conundrum we've kind of put ourselves in here.
Wait
Not
a minute.
us, but
What if we didn't have a transfer station? You had the idea with trucks we didn't have a transfer station, but we purchased 2 or 3 town-owned trash trucks and picked everything up curbside ourselves. It would obviously be, you know, once again, increased staff. You know, we'd need a facility to house the trucks and everything, but that eliminates the private company. It eliminates the transportation fees that we're getting, and we still control it.
Yeah, so I'll have to double, I think, Kevin, I think it's worth considering. It sounds like it would be an enormous amount of money to do that upfront, which is what you were saying before. But let's assume trash trucks cost about $400,000. I'm taking a guess, but I'm going to guess
Yeah.
you probably have a better
Yeah.
idea than me, but somewhere around there, right? If we were able to fund that, our current contract with Harvey is at least double that. So the return on investment would happen in under 5 years. Like, I think between staff and paying for capital equipment.
Right.
Yeah, if what we're looking for is stability, I think that's a good idea to pursue. Stability and for cost.
Right.
I mean, it's going to end up being more work for me, but
I wasn't going to bring it up, Kevin. I'm glad that came out of your mouth.
yeah,
Sorry.
but I don't know. It's just, it's going to be expensive no matter which way. Pick what kind of expensive you want.
Yep.
Whereas if we eliminate the middleman, all our expenses are within the town for staffing, trucks, and tipping fees.
Right. So we wouldn't need pay-as-you-throw bags. We would hire our own drivers, would buy our own trucks. There would have to be a facility to host the trucks.
House them. And no, they won't fit in the facility that we have right now.
Okay, well,
Is
Nice
there
try, though.
room-
thanks for answering the question. That was in my head.
No. We're already full.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had so much stuff outside. As soon as we got everything in there, we're all like, yeah,
Yeah. I'm not surprised. I mean,
yeah.
we had outgrown the old site 25 years ago, so.
Yeah.
Okay, any other thoughts on that model, on the not getting out of the trash business, but completely going into the trash business and buying vehicles and staffing people and giving Kevin a heart attack?
Or an assistant, maybe.
That would, yeah, necessary.
I mean, in terms of research, let's start there. So not in terms of this is what we're doing. We are so far from that conversation, but just in terms of like researching what that would look like and coming up with numbers and an ROI. Do you think that's a model we should be looking at?
I don't even know of any other towns that do that.
We might find out the answer why really quick.
Exactly. So that's why. Are we going to be the ones, oh my God, look what Grafton's doing? You know, like.
What are they, insane?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I would say that that's true for Massachusetts, but in Maryland, there are towns that run it themselves, or the county runs it itself. In
Oh.
Michigan, there are a lot of towns that run it themselves. It's just an anomaly here.
I think it definitely makes sense to look into. Obviously we need a rough idea as to how many trucks we need to service the town. And it probably wouldn't hurt to have you know, the additional annual maintenance fees and stuff that we'd incur, same as we would with any other public vehicle, and get an idea of what that looks like. Because so then we do away with the Harvey contract, right? And we just have to increase our contract with Wheelabrator.
We wouldn't have to increase with Wheelabrator. We are in a, and Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm misspeaking, but I believe we have a 20-year contract with Wheelabrator, regardless of whether we have Harvey, we have waste management, or we.
That I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'd have to look.
Okay. I believe that's the case, but that's something I'd have to check with Evan and find out
I
for
see
sure.
what
Yeah.
Okay.
I would like to bring up one other, I guess, option, but also issue with the whole privatizing it, and that is the cost of recycling. So we're talking about trash, but really the driver of our cost is because Harvey used to be able to sell our recycling in town, and now they can't. Now they have to pay to dispose of it. And so one of the things that we talked about during negotiations with Harvey is like, do we just eliminate recycling for as an option for curbside? We can't, because that means that people would pay an enormous amount in trash bags and fees right now. But is there a different option for recycling that can be split away from the trash program? Because I think if we were to renegotiate with Harvey, let's say, for example, and eliminate recycling from the contract and had an alternative, that we would save quite a bit annually. So that's the driver of cost right now. I mean, obviously there's operational fees, there's tipping fees, but the driver of why we have to increase bag fees and why it's going to continue to rise is because of the recycling market, or lack of.
Throwing this out there, because I don't know at what level this happens, or you know where that tipping point comes, but my understanding is that a lot of the slowdown in the purchase of those recycling commodities is because of levels of contamination, and it's tightening up, you know, the percentage. So if it was, you know, 25% of contaminants was allowable before, it's down to like less than 10, and that's that you know, kind of real, that tightening up is what really bottlenecked everything. And you know, any point being, I wonder if it's something where more town outreach and education on good recycling practices, so theoretically we get less contamination. And if we are showing less contamination, can we do better on our recycling rates?
I just have a quick question about
Yeah,
the
Laura.
definition of contamination for that purpose. Is it only food? Or does it also include like the plastic film that people aren't supposed to be throwing away?
All of it.
Oh yeah, anything that's not supposed to be in there.
Yeah. I rescue a lot of things out of the recycling bin.
Yeah,
so if there's
That's
any
every day with us.
Huh?
That's every day with us. With
Yeah.
our recycling bin that's up at the highway, people come up there and throw, hey, I just did my bathroom over. I'm gonna wait till somebody's not looking and doing everything, and we're smashing the cardboard dumpster down, and we go, what was that?
Right.
It's
yeah.
mayhem. It's
Yeah.
mayhem.
People
Yeah.
not understanding the difference between like scrap metal and, you know, the aluminum and tin that's supposed to go in your curbside. You know, like you can't just throw brake rotors in there. They're metal, but that's a contaminant, you know, things like that. So just I feel like the outreach and messaging is is a strength of mine because of the agency background and whatnot. So that is one of the first places that I go to. I don't even know if that's a thing. If we can get better recycling rates, if our contamination goes down, or if we're talking about like it has to go down at a national level, not just at a Grafton level.
Yeah, that was a question I had too. If there's any way for us to sell the recycling ourselves and choose somebody that we can sort of figure out exactly how they want that to work out. Like what they like, oh, we can only recycle glass, and maybe getting away from recycling plastic and only doing glass and cardboard. Maybe we can sell it like that. I don't, just spitballing here. Adding on to what you were saying, Andy.
Yeah. Kevin, do you know if, I think it's in the town of Blackstone, they have like a regional recycling center. Do you know if that still exists, or do you know about
I
it?
do not. I do not know.
Okay. Because I know that, again, this was years ago, like, other towns in Blackstone Valley had contracted with this, so the town of Blackstone had made like a whole recycling drop off, and but I think they were making money off of it because that was the incentive for them, right? And they had everything from like book swaps and clothes to everything had to be separated. It wasn't single stream, but it was a less expensive model for the communities. And I know that we had looked at it long ago, but decided just to go with Harvey to do everything and get the toters. So, Mara, just going off of your suggestion, I do think that we should look at other options besides keeping it in the same contract. And Andy, to your point, I feel like that's low hanging fruit that we should be doing anyway. And that's part of the charge of this committee. And, I mean, granted, we're back, in the midst of a COVID variant right now, but we have GCTV, like there are definitely ways, social media, there are definitely ways to do some outreach and education, even in current times. So I think that's a great idea.
Social is among the easiest, honestly.
Exactly. Yeah.
It'd probably be on us to develop some content to pass along or assist in that. I wouldn't want to just drop that on poor William's lap, that all of a sudden he's going to start coming up with recycling facts and doling those out to everybody. But I think the goal is always less in the bag. And I think even simple things, I've seen some comments lately, because the Boy Scout troops are doing clothing drives. And I think there's a general assumption that you need to donate good clothes. And that's not the case. They recycle all types of fabric. So, within reason. But generally it just needs to be clean. Like it can be ripped and torn. It's for textile recycling. It's not like a Goodwill type scenario where these clothes are necessarily going to be resold or gifted to people. Sometimes they're just going straight to textile recycling. But I don't know how much things like that are common knowledge, and certainly don't hurt to put out. And then you're putting less in your bag. Although as Doreen pointed out, if people are buying less bags, that's worse for the town in the long run as well. So we got to get somewhere. But
yeah, but I think in terms of recycling, I think that's a great option and something that we could start pretty quickly. Getting social media posts on the town website, maybe doing some kind of Q&A or PSA on GCTV, and just getting people to start thinking about it again. Particularly, it's a way that we are helping residents to use less bags in terms of, maybe not the overall like town budget, but that's not every individual family's on top of mind for everybody, right? They're thinking about their own family budget. And so, it maybe would put it top of mind, like, oh yeah, I could do this differently, or recycle this differently, or start a composting program, or be reminded that this doesn't go in the trash and in the recycling bin. So I think it's a great idea, and probably one we should discuss at our next meeting about, taking action on sooner than later. Any other comments? Thoughts about anything else that was brought up at the meeting too? Sherilyn?
I just wanted to say, I'm saying this for the, I'm saying this on behalf of Amy Marr, the Girl Scout clothing bin does only want resellable clothing in it.
Right.
So I just wanted to say that so that it's been said.
But also they don't want high chairs and your trash
shoes.
deposited there as well,
Yeah.
all those things that we could call out for people.
Yeah. Actually, so Green Earth too, is that what it's called? The composting company that I have the bin in my driveway for a year and I can't remember the name. Is that what it's called?
It's Black Earth.
Black Earth.
Yeah, I just pulled it up.
So they actually do the textiles too. So they have stickers, and so that's an incentive too. So I've been able to purge and get rid of a bunch of things that we no longer use, everything from blankets and old towels or whatever, and exactly for that, for textile recycling. So it's a lot of perks being part of that company. And again, like, what are people going to do with that? They can't throw it in their recycling bin. So their other option would be either to wait for the Boy Scouts or, to put it in their trash and have to pay for it, which most people would not choose that option.
Right. I think, if we're talking general, if we're not worried about money and programs and whatnot, in an ideal world, I think we have more of those drop-offs, where we focus on like the small appliances. I think people end up hoarding styrofoam. They're always looking for places to get rid of styrofoam, scrap metal, any of that stuff. Like if we start getting Rich Whitney, like he's going to pay the town a stipend, but we make him our official scrap hauler and he just goes around picking stuff up, I just as an example, like the more I think people would like to see more of those type of events where they can get rid of those things. But I know it takes someone to organize them. It takes somebody to schedule them, and get everything lined up. Sometimes there's cost involved. It's not as easy or as cut and dry as people want it to be. But I think if we could increase any of those programs, because I don't even think that has to be town funded.
No.
It's just town can help raise awareness of, and really promote these things when they happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love it. Again, another, and this is something that, and I'm sure Kevin, even though he's saying he's not it, you join this committee, but you're like, no, not. No, but I'm sure you hear all the time of people wondering like where there are other drop-off locations for, like, styrofoam's a huge.
Styrofoam is huge.
Yeah. So I think, again, that's another way to build awareness, to give options to people. And that's another, again, that's a charge of this committee, another whole, like when we formed this committee, that was really the driver of doing more of this type of stuff. It just so happens that Evan delivered the bad news to us about raising bag fees and what our trajectory would be, in early December. So, oh, I'm echoing. Sorry about that. Anything else? Any other comments? This is a really good discussion.
I think worth noting again, if we didn't watch the select board meeting, or if anybody's watching this that didn't watch the select board meeting, that these certainly aren't changes that happen overnight. I know we're talking about this taking a while to even put together recommendations, but like switching to a cart model is at least a year away from whenever we start that process. And we hope to institute the bag fees quickly, and even that had to be delayed because we need to allot for time for barcode scanners to be updated and that type of stuff. So just reiterating that it's a process and it's going to be a road, but we'll get there.
Yeah, and if anyone has ideas outside this committee, they can feel free to reach out to either the town administrator's office or the select board, and I will pass information on to this committee, as will Evan, and we will take anything into consideration at this point. But Andy, that's a really well put. I even our Harvey contract was just signed last year, and it's a 3-year contract. So we may even end up waiting until the end of that contract, depending on the change we want to make before we implement anything completely new. But there has to be, at some point, some solutions put in place. So at least residents know we're doing the best we can do to mitigate any extra costs coming into this and spending your tax money wisely. I mean, I guess, that's the ultimate goal. So, great. So are we ready to wrap up this discussion, or does anyone else have any more comments? We're good. Yeah, thanks for everybody's input on that. Really great. So I put new business down on here just in case there's any new business that anyone wants to bring up. I think we have our plates full, but is there anything else that we should be discussing or working on that has not been discussed in this meeting? I have one thing, which is we had talked in our initial meeting about having E.L. Harvey come to a meeting to ask questions and just get familiar with our current program. And at the time, they were being bought out from a larger company, and our town administrator was meeting with the managers at the Westboro Hopkinton site to see what would be changing. And from our perspective, right now, nothing is changing operationally. We still have the same drivers, we still have the same management, we still have the same people when we call if there's an issue. So I just wanted to make sure that was happening before I invited someone in and then said, just kidding, it's actually someone else. But now that we've confirmed that, would it be helpful for this committee if at our next meeting, I invited someone from E.L. Harvey to join us and ask questions?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Yeah. I feel like any information they could pass along about how Grafton does their business, how that compares to typical towns in the area, just anything they can do for us to help us understand this process better would be amazing.
Great.
Even the composting company that you were talking about,
Okay.
if they have a representative too, because that's the other side of the sword too, because I didn't even know that was a thing, that you could have your own composting.
Well, I mean, also,
I had no clue. So I just think if we have representatives from these 2 fields, I mean, I kind of think this is going to be like having a Red Sox and a Yankees player here at the same time, but why not? It's information,
Yeah.
It was.
We gotta be schooled.
Sorry, it was promoted when they first offered the service, but if you didn't know about it now, or anybody who just moved to town, I don't think that type of information is readily available to them, or they might not even think to ask. So
Right.
From someone who's been here for a while and they don't know about it, how could we expect any newer people to know about it? Or get behind it.
Right.
But yeah, great idea to bring them in as well. Yep.
Okay. So I'll take on the task of calling E.L. Harvey and Black Earth and seeing if I can get a representative to come in maybe on the same night, maybe on 2 different meetings. We'll see how we can schedule it out. And how would you guys feel about also at our next meeting, sort of going over what we've discussed tonight and maybe dividing some tasks of, it sounds like we have some outreach we could be doing, and then also some research we need to be doing, which would just be reaching out to other communities, looking into costs and just kind of putting together a spreadsheet of what numbers would look like and what options seem the most feasible for us to start moving in a couple of different directions. Does that sound good? Like, we don't have to do that now. I think this is a really good discussion and we can do that at our next meeting.
I think
Sound
that's, yeah.
Okay.
I'd like to see, I think that the reps come in at different meetings.
Okay.
Just so it doesn't feel like it won't make for one long meeting for us. It's probably going to be different sets of questions for each, and then we're not really limiting the interaction time. If things are going well with the Harvey rep and we end up talking for like an hour and a half, great. We don't have to feel bad that the Black Earth rep, didn't get any FaceTime with us, or we have to bump them off for another week.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree with that.
Okay, good. And are people okay if we schedule this, if we end up having 2 meetings in February if necessary because of that, or? Okay, all right. Because I also just want to be mindful of people's time, and the fact that you're volunteering your time is much appreciated. So I'll try to spread them out as much as I could. It seems like Wednesdays typically work, but as usual, I'll be in touch and make sure that we can hold another good meeting. So thank you all for your time.
Okay.
I have
Thank you.
another question,
Mhm.
which is there data somewhere that says what, like, I know there's some of the neighborhoods and some of the apartment buildings are not getting trash service through E.L. Harvey. Is there
None of them are. No
None of
condos or apartments receive curbside pickup.
yeah, I
But
guess
they
my
pay
question is, like,
taxes.
what percent of the town is already privatized, basically, versus what percent of the town is under the Harvey contract?
Kevin, I see you doing the math in your head.
I'm sure
I'm
this
just
is
thinking of how many condo complexes and apartment complexes. There's a lot.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and some have pickup, some have dumpsters. It really varies. So I
Yeah.
just know, and I'll get the exact number, and Harvey will know this too, but I think it's like 4,600 and growing households that participate in pay as you throw and curbside pickup. How many condos there are? I would have to look that up.
More every year, I think.
Say that again?
More every year.
Oh yeah, and more single family homes too. So yeah, we can get that information. But that's something too that people who live in condos and people who own condos and apartments, I should say, who pay taxes into the town and do not receive the service. That's another complaint that the town administrator's office hears about often.
Makes sense.
That's another whole conversation for another time. So, and as someone who used to live in a condo in town, I can say it was a little frustrating to pay for it twice, but that's how it is. That's how it's set up. So, okay. So if there is no other questions or comments, I can take a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Great. I have a motion and a second. So we're going to do a roll call vote since we're on Zoom. So I'll start with Andy.
Aye.
Sherilyn.
Aye.
Maura.
Aye.
Kevin. And Doreen is aye. So 5-0, we are adjourned at 7:26 p.m.